Hey guys, so it's Mother's Day. I'm just going to go out for a little ride on Sparkles here, visit my mum. I'll record some of the trip. It's not hugely exciting, but yeah, hey, I haven't posted anything for a while, so enjoy the journey. Just got to go put some fuel in the Hoggle first, which is always hugely exciting. Old Sparkles here, she never runs spectacularly well when she's cold. She'll pick up when she gets up to proper operating temperature. It hasn't been ridden in a few weeks. I've started a couple of times, but the battery's not spectacularly charged at the moment either. So it's another reason to take her out for a ride today. My partner quizzed me. She looked outside at the weather and she's going, "Why are you going for a ride today?" She said, "It looks like it's about to rain." And I looked out and said, "No, it's a perfect day for a ride." It's a little bit overcast. There are a couple of little patches of blue. The cloud for the most part is fairly high. Now, we'll put some fuel in this old girl and we'll be on our way. Alright, so we're all fueled up now. My fuel gauge is not super accurate. This one's all programmable and I think I've got it on the wrong settings. I have to read up on how to set it all. Whilst I was filling the bike up, I had an old guy come up to me and say, "Oh, I remember that when those bikes first came out. Yeah, I always used to ride Norton Commandos," and yeah, proceeded to basically tell me his life story. Happens a bit with these old bikes. Everyone's got a story of when they remember them, when they came out, or yeah, everybody always wants a yarn. So we're just leaving Grafton and my mum lives down towards Yamba. It's about a 40-50k ride. I'm not going to be taking the straight line as you don't with motorbikes, although yeah, the roads aren't terribly twisty. You know, this is the old Pacific Highway. Grafton was bypassed by the highway 12 months ago. So this is only for local traffic now. I think I promised you guys, probably 2 videos ago, that I'd tell you about how Sparkles here got a name Sparkles. So when I got this bike, which was a real basket case, been sitting in somebody's shed for God knows how long. I think it may have even had 1 or 2 floods over it. And the bike needed a complete rebuild. So it had really horrible rattle can paint on it. Somebody didn't really care too much for the old girl. So I stripped her all back, gave her a bare frame rebuild. And whilst giving the rebuild, I decided I wasn't going to take it back to original colours, because the bike was going to be a long way from standard anyway. So why paint it the standard colours? So I went to a local spray painter and I said, oh, I'm thinking of painting the bike blue. It's not this blue that you can see on it now. It's a slightly darker blue. He said, yeah, that'll look good, we can do that. He said, do you want to snazz it up a bit, put a bit of a metallic flaking? Yeah, sure. So I went to pick up all the parts and he put this really heavy metallic flake in it, and it really did sparkle when you took it out in the sun. The sun had sparkled back off the metal flake. I was always going to call the bike, all good cars and motorbikes should have a name, so I was going to call it Veronica. And my partner said, why Veronica? And I said, oh, it seems like she's a bit of a high maintenance bitch. But she told me that no, I couldn't possibly call it Veronica. The bike had to be Sparkles. So there it is. So she got called Sparkles from then on. It has had a respray. It doesn't sparkle like it used to now. Although the reason I resprayed it again is I came off the bike in a low speed front end washout, braking fairly heavily in the wet to avoid another motorbike. And down I went on my arse, scraped up all one side of her, so she got another respray. However, this respray I did in my shed. The bike was my main transport and I only had 2 weeks holidays, so it's a bit of a rush job, not a perfect paint job by any means. So now I have another form of transport. I may strip it down, do it all again properly this time, take my time with it. Toying with taking it back to red and white, but I like blue and silver. But I might put a nice heavy clear coat over it with metal flake in it again. Give her a sparkle back. So you might see I've got aftermarket gauges on the bike. They're from Speed Hut, American company. You tell them basically what you want on the gauge. It's got the digital readout. So you've got speedo, tacho, and I've got volt and fuel. Another guy in the US, Fred Greenley, he'll actually order the gauges for you, in the specs you want, and you send him your gauge cluster, and he'll install them all for you, and he'll do probably a much neater job than I will. My stuff, I thought, red and black will look cool, but the red's just not quite bright enough for some daytime riding, and it actually gets a bit hard to see the gauges. I'm quite about getting different face plates, but I've actually got to send the gauges back to America for them to do it. So the cost is a bit prohibitive, so I'll stick with the red and black for now. I replaced the gauges because the speedo that I originally had in this bike, when they're about knackered, they let out this squeal. It sounds like a banshee coming to get you. And squealed for about 2 weeks and then just stopped working. Replaced the cable, that didn't do anything. It was the actual gauge, it was knackered. I could have got just a standard OEM replacement gauge for it. which may have had the same issues, but this gauge here runs off GPS. See, there's a little sensor down here, and it's more accurate than you'll get in gauges in the car. So I can get the speedo, I'll get a full set. It cost me about $600, and that was 4 or 5 years ago now. So if there's any other questions you'd like to know about sparkles, let me know. I'll endeavour to answer them. I can tell you that it's an 84 FJ. It's running 89 FJ front end, so which means it gives me the bigger 17-inch wheel, bigger 4-pot calipers, bigger disc. I had it completely rebuilt. It's got Race Tech springs in it and valve emulators. Improved the front end handling of this thing out of sight. When I said that I came off the bike, it had the original 84 front end on it. It had been rebuilt. I honestly believe, apart from probably lack of experience, that it was that 84 front end and the Bridgestone BT45 tyres I had on it was part of the reason I had the front end washout. Also had my son on the bike with me that day, so which probably didn't help. We were only doing probably 30 kilometres an hour, so 20 miles an hour for any American people when we hit the ground. As I said, it was in the wet, so we just slid along. Bruised pride more than anything, but yeah, the bike got scratched up a bit. That's what prompted me to put the new front end in it. The original motor that came with this bike was, it's an 1100 originally. When I pulled it down to the bare frame, I looked at the motor and found it had cracks in the crankcase, and it turned over, but it wasn't very healthy. So I contacted one of the FJ guys, because the fairing that came with this bike was cut down by a previous owner and been chopped up. So I did him a deal for a new front fairing and well, when I say new, a 70,000 kilometre old FJ 1100 motor. That lasted for a couple of years. It just never seemed to quite have the power that it should have had. So I got onto another FJ guy and said, "Oh, I've got a spare 89 motor sitting in my shed. $100, you can have it." Cool. Drove up, picked it up, came home, swapped over all the bits and pieces that need to be swapped over. So like the pickups in the 1100s and the 1200s are different. Bolted her all in, fired her up, and there was my missing horsepower. I did have an issue with the starter clutch in this 1200 motor, so tried to fix it with some new OEM parts. It still wasn't working right, so I split the cases on the old 1100 motor and put that starter clutch in this 1200 motor. I found out the reason why it was low on power. The 1100 motor had been split before, and they hadn't done a very good job of putting it back together. Hadn't lined up a few of the dowels for the gear cluster, which is why I kept jumping out of second gear, and just hadn't been looked after very well, unfortunately. So since I've put the new starter clutch in this motor, it's run well, although it does blow a little bit of smoke, and that is my fault. I was riding down to a shed day down at Bermagui, down near the New South Wales Victoria border. Middle of November, I decided Hey, let's go through Sydney and we can ride through the Royal National Park. I heard the roads are good. 40-degree day. Got stuck in a traffic jam in Sydney, couldn't lane split, you know, the vehicles too close together, couldn't ride up the sides. So here we are stuck idling in this traffic jam. And the motor's just got a bit hot. And it's either done something with the oil rings or it's done something with the valve stem seals. It's on the top end there anyway. So it just uses a little bit of oil, blows a little bit of smoke under hard acceleration. So sometime in the next 12 months or so I'm hoping, I'll pull the top end off this motor, give the bores a hone, new set of rings, replace the valve stem steels, pull it all back up, hopefully it should be good. I've got an update on the 92 as well. Since I posted that last video of it where I took it for the test ride up to Yulong, I decided the project was basically finished. All it needed really to finish the bike off was a new rear shock. Because I want a bit more space in my shed, I offered it up for sale. And I've since had a deposit placed on the bike by a fellow ex-FJer. He hasn't had an FJ for quite some time. He said he had one years ago. Sold it. Regretted selling it, after a few years. Actually managed to track it down and found the bike had been neglected and toyed up buying it back again, but decided it was going to cost him too much money. Saw my bike for sale and he said, yeah, saw your video, I'll have that. So just has to organise a bike courier to pick it up, exchange the money, and she's off to a new home. Next chapter in her life. Here she pulls through to 8,500 RPM nicely. Bit of a bad connection there. That's what happens when you don't ride your bikes. Things just start to not work. Missed the gear there, found that neutral between third and fourth. got to be a bit vigilant through here. It is skippy territory. I do like to just jump out and say hello every now and then. A couple of them over there in the middle of the paddock. Well guys, I'm going to stop the video there. When you've been bored enough by me droning on, talking about me and my bikes, and you don't want to see, just riding through cane paddocks. There's not much of a view, and that's about the last half decent corner. So I'll catch you in the next video. As all the big channels say, please click like and subscribe. You never know, one day I might be able to make some money from this rather than just talking to my, I don't know how many subscribers I got, 100 subscribers. Woohoo! Might have to pull my finger out and do some decent intros and some decent editing. Okay, ride safe guys, keep the rubber down and enjoy yourself.